It hurts, it hurts, it hurts, oh, oh, oh. Hey, thank you for checking out our podcast. This is Right All Week. I am your host. My name is Dave. And if you would, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, and share this with your friends if you would like. To send us an email, you can do that rightallweek@gmail.com. That is the address. And if you would like to engage with us at the usual social networks, you can do that. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The username at Right All Week. We would love to see you there. And this week, I want to talk to you about some of the pains that we are all feeling. And the reason I am screaming with pain, of course, I went to see the dentist today. This is good news, of course, because, they're open again. I was supposed to see the dentist in March, but, back in March, we had to shut everything down. I'm grateful to get back in there and get some work done. And, sometimes you have to get a little bit of pain so that you can get the benefits of that pain and get back to health where you want to be again. But, you know what's really not good pain, of course, is when you have to put in your blood, your sweat, your tears, years and years of labor and service, and then somebody tells you you're not allowed to go to work. And then after weeks and weeks of not working, then you get shut down for good. And that's kind of what we're seeing across the nation right now. Some businesses, they're not opening, they're not going to be able to reopen, and they're closing down forever. There was a report that was released by The Hill on Friday saying they expected 100,000 businesses were not going to be able to reopen, but that ended up just being a scratching of the surface, because there's another report that came out just today, and it was published by CBS saying, you know what, a third of small businesses are saying they're not going to be able to reopen, and only 45% of the businesses that were a part of the survey said that they expected they would even be able to rehire all of their staff to be able to give them jobs again. And then there's another report that was done. We're looking at, all this that we did with the CARES Act. The SBA loans, those went away with a flash, and then they resupplied, they refunded that. And then, of course, all that money went away with a flash. But now we're looking and we're seeing, hey, what is actually happening with all of that money? Where there's a rule there that says, you have to use 75% of the money that you get with that loan if you would like it to be forgiven and treated like a grant. 75% of that money has to be used specifically for your employees, either as payroll or for healthcare, employee payment cost type things, if you would like it to be treated like a grant in the end. And then only 25% of the funds that you're given. Now, those loans cap out at $10 million, but you can't just roll up and be like, hey, I want $10 million for my business. You have to be able to prove that your business is going to need $10 million to stay alive during this, what we anticipated the course of this experience was going to be. You're only going to be able to get as much as you can show that you would need financially when you go and show them, hey, here's my cost analysis, P&A, and here are my books and all that. So they look at this stuff and they say, okay, well, here's how much money you can get. So only 25% of the money that you get from these loans can be used to pay for things like rent or mortgage or utilities, the fixed costs. Meanwhile, if maybe you're allowed to reopen, but we're going to put restrictions on. Well, what are you allowed to do while you reopen? Well, maybe you're only allowed to do 25% capacity of the people you can bring inside the building. Well, how are you your fixed costs aren't going to be reduced down to 25%. Your fixed costs are fixed, right? So that's the problem with it. And so here's what we're seeing, actually. A lot of these businesses, they went and they got their loans and they paid for their employees to keep them on the payroll. They kept their insurance going as long as they could. And then the 8 weeks went by, they ran out of money, they used up the loan, and now they couldn't keep the business together, couldn't pay the rent, couldn't pay the mortgage, couldn't pay the utilities, couldn't pay the other fixed costs. So now they went out of business anyway. And this was the genius of the CARES Act, right? The SBA was supposed to be one of the best parts of the CARES Act. We were going to keep people from going into the unemployment lines. Well, no, it didn't work out. We just delayed them joining the unemployment lines by 8 weeks or so. We gave the businesses, those that we could afford to fund, those we got to fast enough, those who had their paperwork and were those who were ready, those who could manage to get through all the red tape. We gave them money. We kept the employees on the payroll at the businesses for another 8 weeks, and now they're closing anyway, and now they're going to go join the unemployment lines, and that's what's happening. So CARES Act, even though the idea was supposed to be that it wasn't going to be putting them on the government dole, well, they were on the government dole through a different program, and now they're going to be on the government dole through the regular program. And I haven't missed this part too. The other side of the CARES Act was we changed how much they get paid while they're on unemployment. They're getting $600 a week, which is, oh, by the way, the minimum wage of $15 an hour. So all of this fighting that we did, trying to avoid the bumping up of minimum wage to $15 an hour, well, now people are getting paid $15 an hour to sit home and do nothing. And now we're going to go back into the economy. Hopefully it's going to get resolved. We're going to fix it, but there are going to be at least 1/3 less places to go and get a job. But we're also going to say, hey, we're going to have to find a way when we've got all of this stress on the economy to tell people we have to pay them better than they're getting paid to do nothing while they're sitting at home getting $15 an hour. It's going to be a disaster. And also, another big news breaking out over the weekend, more of the big companies are filing for bankruptcy, JCPenney being one of them. So, of course, that was another one that we called and predicted it. And, you know, a wise man once said a long, long time ago, you count the cost before you go into action, right? And it wasn't like we didn't see this thing coming. In fact, some of the folks who we would consider to be on the other side of the aisle, if you're right-minded, Brookings Institute said it's going to be a disaster for the economy, in fact. So it's not like we didn't know that this was going to be hard for us, but we didn't sit there, we didn't weigh it properly, we didn't take into account all of the costs that we were going to have to pay. And now it's going to be a very long, very hard, very difficult road for us to climb out of this mess that we've made for ourselves by shutting down the entire country, shutting down the economy, and telling businesses, you're not essential, you don't go to work, you don't give your employees the ability to provide for themselves. And now this new situation that we've created, we did not count the cost, and now it's going to be very painful, and the future looks very, very difficult too. And we need to start doing this. We need to count the cost. Where do we need to go from today? Make the decisions today to count the costs. Proper weighing and measuring. Yeah, some of it's going to hurt, especially if we want people to get not used to collecting $15 an hour for doing nothing. If we want them to go back to jobs to employers who already can't afford to have them at the old rates. So, but here's the thing. Sometimes pain is good. You need some pain, like I experienced today, in order to get you back to a better, brighter, healthier, happier future. And that's the message that I have for you guys today. So count the cost, embrace the pain, and keep the future in your perspective, because that's what we need in order to get us there. So I'm Dave. This is Right All Week. If you're still watching, I want to thank you and invite you to come back here where we will once again talk about what's right, how it's right, and why it matters.